A recovered COVID patient repents for his past wrongdoings, living life to the fullest with a new perspective. Since the volunteers in Kaohsiung sent out boxes of supplies and nutritious food to the children in rural areas.
歡迎收睇DaAi Headlines，我係 Ruiren，我哋一齊睇下今日嘅內容。Tzu Chi volunteer Ye Ruiren and his wife, along with 2 elderly family members, were COVID patients. The 2 elderly passed away, while Ye himself was later discharged from the hospital. After recovery, they had to move out of Wanhua because of their neighbor's discrimination. Despite all that, Ye has learned so much from this disease. He vows to adopt a vegetarian diet and live his life to the fullest.
Looking at the sunlight and telling himself he can bravely enter the light. From testing positive to recovery, Tzu Chi volunteer Ye Ruiren has been shown the love from his Dharma family. After more than 10 days of treatment, Ye has many regrets and emotions that he hasn't been able to overcome.
When I knew I tested positive, my wife was in quarantine. When I snuck a look at her, I saw that she had tears in her eyes. I told her that she needs to take care of herself because impermanence may come knocking at my door.
In his moment of being afraid of the unknown, a thought popped up in his head.
My wife had light symptoms and stayed in the quarantine hotels, and I had severe symptoms. My wife was always a vegetarian, and she would always try to get me to change my diet, but I never listened. Now I vowed to be a vegetarian, and I will do it. My stupidity of the past is gone. I vow that life after life I will follow Master Zheng Ye and continue with vegetarianism.
Having been a certified volunteer for years, Ye couldn't give up his penchant for meat. He first apologized to his fellow volunteers in a group chat. Everyone was very understanding and sent him tons of encouraging words. This wasn't enough for Ye, though. He wanted to write down an essay of repentance, but didn't know where to start.
Then I said, I will interview you, and if you say yes, I will write it down. I wrote down my own essay of repentance. I wrote, I like eating seafood. I like to eat clams, shrimp, and fish. These are all creatures that are trapped in a pan or pot who can't escape. I am deeply regretful of my actions and didn't know of the consequences. I pray to the Buddha to forgive me. I will do my best to encourage more people to go vegetarian. And that's how I wrote my own essay of repentance, and I gave him a copy. The next day, he gave me a copy of his own repentance essays.
Through volunteer Ye Ruiren's guidance, Ye was able to look at his life from a new perspective. He also shared this new outlook with his fellow peers during their cultivation session online. With this vow to continue, his cheerleader came to visit him. A vegetarian lunch which fills his stomach and warms his heart. It's just that after his recovery from COVID, Ye has felt estranged in his own home and was motivated to move.
I didn't have electricity at the house and found out that rats chewed through the wires. Then I immediately went to the electrician shops nearby to have them come look at it. But when they heard my address, they wouldn't take my business. This happened at 2 electrician stores. In the past, the local market vendors would ask us to use the restroom at my house. But when they knew we tested positive, they didn't ask us to use it and avoided us like we have the plague.
They are often afraid of the spread of the infection after recovery. Although our lives may be separated through social distancing, our hearts can remain close together, as we are all living on the same earth. It's important to have a heart for one another.
Returning to society as a recovered COVID patient, many things may seem different, but Ye takes this opportunity to share his story and remembers to live life to the fullest each day and do something meaningful with it.
Nurse Ye Ruiren of Danin Tzu Chi Hospital was among the first team of nurses entering the dedicated wards to take care of COVID-confirmed patients. Seeing patients recover and be discharged healthily make her feel worthwhile.
Waving goodbye to a recovered patient, Tsai Yongyuan has been a nurse in the dedicated wards since the end of May this year. Seeing the patients discharged healthy and well is one of her greatest happiness.
At that time, the patient was not in a good condition, and everyone would go in wearing protective gear from 3 to even 5 hours a time. We were up against a difficult challenge.
No one wants to be infected with the coronavirus. However, when they are under our care, the patients can see that the nurses are such hardworking individuals. We are all doing our best in helping their recovery. When they are discharged from the hospital, we are so glad.
喂，大哥，你今天起来运动了吗？
Last year, Tsai was among the first team of nurses who volunteered to handle the dedicated wards. At the age of 35, after she graduated from Tzu Chi University of Science and Technology, she hoped to continue to gain experience in her field. Recently, one of her patients who was intubated for 27 days left a big impression on her.
In those few days, originally he didn't speak to us over 5 words, but lately when we visit him, we will encourage him to take a walk around the room. We can see from the monitors that he listened to us and would get out of bed to walk for about half an hour. When we measure his blood oxygen level, it reaches at least 97%.
Seeing a patient recover from critical care and be discharged healthy to return to their family has Tsai feel all the stress and challenges of her job to be entirely worthwhile.
Also in Daning Tzu Hospital, physician Zhang Jianhua from Cardiac Surgery Department has voluntarily worked in the COVID ward for nearly a month. He has learned a lot from the mission, and the support from his family makes him adhere to his aspiration of saving lives.
62岁男性，他目前没有什么明显的症状啦。
Working together with the medical team for nearly a month, Zhang Jianhua, who voluntarily devoted himself to treat COVID patients, went from being unfamiliar in the beginning to now reluctant to give up. He left the mission with lots of knowledge.
经过这个月，我觉得这就是
After this month, I think it is perfect teamwork for the hospital management, especially Deputy Superintendent Lai. He hosted a meeting
我们胸腔科医师，还有病房
with our thoracic surgeons and ICU colleagues every day to help patients develop treatment plans.
化这样子。
This pandemic is difficult to fight alone. During the time of SARS, the superintendent held meetings with us every day to discuss patients' condition. This actually has a great effect on stabilizing our mind.
Having been away from home for a month, the support of his family made him understand more about his responsibilities of saving more lives, which is also an important task that he is obliged to take.
有时候在
Sometimes when the ward is busy, although some of our colleagues are off, they will stay and continue to work.
Our subordinates, the young attending physicians or other attending physicians, all work hard with me. The whole thing is a very meaningful thing.
After 7 days of self-quarantine, Dr. Zhang immediately returned to his original post to serve patients. Although he has to continue his busy medical duties, he will always be the best support for the COVID ward.
Dai Jiahui, the supervisor of the nursing department of Huanian Tzu Medical Center, shared her care experience in the COVID ward at a seminar. She always upheld her initial aspiration of treating patients as her own self, giving patients the most appropriate care.
在第一线的急诊，它需要做一些分仓分流。
Recalling the caring process in a dedicated ward, as seen in the past, impressed Dai Jiahui a lot.
There was a couple living together in the same ward so that they could encourage each other. The wife didn't want to do rehabilitation because she felt it was very hard. Then the husband gave her encouragement and said, "You have to cooperate. We need to get all together."
As the supervisor of the nursing department, the team's dedication and ingenuity were also part of issues she wanted to share.
When we put on the protective equipment, in fact, patients won't recognize who we are. My colleague then had a thought about the concept of an armband with our photos and names on it. When we enter the ward, we can introduce ourselves to the patients.
不管是
Whether it is a confirmed COVID patient or a suspected one, they would follow a set of standard operating procedure, yet integrated with humanitarian care. When dealing with patients' concern, they would listen and try to come up with some solutions.
解决。
Dai Jiahui is the soul of the ward and is responsible for the floor and staffing. She graduated from Tzu Chi School of Nursing 18 years ago. After graduation, she immediately began to work and pursued graduate studies simultaneously at Tzu Chi University. She is now a PhD graduate, but still bears the initial aspiration.
Treat patients as ourselves. When facing a patient, we need to think, if I were a patient, what kind of care I hope to receive. As such, you should know what we can do for the patient.
Although she sometimes looks cool, without a smile at all, she actually has a warm heart. Sometimes her little gestures from her can make us very warm.
Anywhere with her, people can feel at ease. She bravely undertakes nursing as her lifelong mission.
To support healthcare workers, business owners in DaAi City and Deoliu City office deliver desserts and fresh fruit tea for them to replenish energy, standing with them together on the front line.
500 servings of fresh bean-curd dessert, cooked for 4 hours, was sent to hospital for medical staff to eat.
Because we are in the food business, we want to use our best products to thank the frontline medical staff.
The Deoliu City office also sent fresh pineapple fruit tea to replenish energy for the frontline staff.
In addition to providing vaccination services, they also have pandemic prevention duty. All medical staff work very hard. We hope that all medical staff can be safe, healthy, and happy.
We are not afraid of superstitions with pineapple. We are afraid that the patients will not come to get the vaccine. We are not afraid to be busy because we are all ready. And with care from all walks of life, we always reserve our energy to maximize it.
The people and the government work together and look forward to the end of the pandemic.
Tzu Chi volunteers in Kaohsiung sent out thousands of boxes of living supplies, which contain a lot of materials and Master's blessings to the children in remote villages, helping them survive this difficult time.
Inside the Jingsi Hall, everyone gathered to pack like a production line.
When everyone works together to help, the completion speed will be faster.
Everyone moved quickly and put 14 items into the box in order.
There are Jingsi food products and a letter from the master.
We'll send the supplies to students in rural areas and children from low-income households, which can form a good relationship with them.
Thousands of boxes of supplies will be delivered to the remote villages. Volunteers and staff work together to help.
I often come to Jingsi Hall. I will come when help is needed.
Usually, it's the volunteers who pack the supplies, but we thought this time to give staff members in various offices a chance to contribute.
Some other volunteers brought the living supplies to Taoyuan and Zhangshan schools in the mountainous area. Among them, Jingsi Arboretum attracted the attention of a child.
During the pandemic, in fact, many parents were unable to go out to work and encountered many difficulties in life.
We need to take care of the children's lives and give them some supplementary nutrition.
As for Sanling Junior High School, they also receive a lot of supplies.
We want to provide nutrition for the children, and the most important thing is to express our Tzu Chi care to people.
We hope they can give back to society like Tzu Chi does when they grow up.
During the pandemic, boxes of supplies were sent to the forgotten corners, hoping that everyone could survive this difficult time together.
Tzu Chi Jingsi Hall in Xindian has been used as a vaccination station. The medical team of Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital and volunteers went there to serve the elders and ease their uneasy mind.
Since the vaccination was launched, Xindian Jingsi Hall, as it is located next to Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital, have a large crowd of people waiting for vaccination almost every morning. Even volunteer traffic wardens also help to maintain order.
This is our duty. I should help. As we are on the same island, we should all work together. Assisting in elderly vaccination for epidemic prevention is what we are supposed to do.
Mr. Zeng is a patient at the Taipei Tzu Hospital. His condition improved in the past 2 days, so with his son's company, he also came to receive vaccination.
When I came from the hospital in a wheelchair, I have been exposed to the sun. The nurse said my body temperature was 38.7. Now she comes again to take my temperature, which is 36.6. It is fine that the healthcare workers are more detailed like this, and safer.
I think coming to this Jingsa Hall to get a vaccine is quite good. The arrangement is well planned. There are a lot of people helping us.
Some elderly people sitting in the waiting area are accompanied by family members, while others came alone. Volunteers went to care for them, and some doctors and nurses went to ask for their medical history and health conditions.
Everyone is afraid of seeking medical treatment, that along getting an injection, especially if they are elders with side dementia, they might not cooperate very well. So we usually follow this working SOP like this.
Sometimes in the outpatient clinic, I would come across some elders who are worried about getting vaccination. I think it's a pity because in fact at their age getting vaccinated actually has many advantages. So we should encourage them to get the vaccine, which can also protect their bodies.
Although vaccination cannot completely block the infection risk, it can at least reduce the rate of having severe illness. It is expected that the increase in vaccine coverage will allow the epidemic in Taiwan to ease soon.
In May, a COVID patient was admitted to Taipei Tzu Hospital but passed away only after 10 days. As his family was unable to visit him, Tzu helped to deal with his funeral affairs, which moved his niece, Miss Sun, to donate back the Tzu subsidy of 25,000 NT dollars, hoping to help other people in need.
我觉得应该的啦，就是如果这样子，一切都可以。
The call brings the time back to the end of May. A 70-year-old Mr. Chen was sent to Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital because he was a confirmed COVID-19 patient. He lives in poverty. His niece, Mrs. Chen, called the hospital and hoped that the social workers would help. But Mr. Chen passed away in just 10 days after being hospitalized.
我们就准备了一套衣服。
We prepared a set of clothes and even bought a pair of shoes for him, helped him tidy up and clean, and sent him away.
离开。
It's the first time we have encountered such a terrible virus, and we don't know what to do. Fortunately, social worker Yang has assisted us.
It's also because of Grandpa Chen is a confirmed COVID patient. The social worker assists in contacting the funeral agency and cleaning the company to clean up the place where he rented. Also, the medical staff bought at 90 degrees to send him the last mile.
我有请护理师。
I have asked the nurse to say to the patient that we have contacted his niece and we will definitely help him deal with his funeral. We hope he can feel at ease.
安心。喂，是不是你好？
Half a month later, the social worker received another call from Mrs. Chen, stating that she wanted to donate Tzu Chi subsidy of 25,000 NT dollars back to Tzu Chi in the name of her uncle.
Tzu Chi's intervention at this important time really helped the family a lot. We can't go to the hospital to see him for the last time. But with the love of medical staff, I hope to donate 25,000 NT dollars back to someone who really needs help, like my uncle.
Mrs. Chen turned the full touch into words and wrote in a letter, "Thank you for letting my uncle work so dignified at the hospital. Fortunately, we have your help so that he will not be alone in his final journey."
A man who lives in Indonesia found out that he had lymphoma a year ago. His treatment was delayed due to poverty, making his condition worse. Tzu reached out to help with medical expenses and also a living subsidy so he can heal in peace.
Because of lymphoma, a tumor on his neck is getting bigger and bigger as this man worries about being a burden to the family. No matter how painful it is, he does not mention it.
In the beginning, the tumor was relatively small, but it got bigger and bigger with time. I asked him if it hurts, and he said it doesn't hurt.
Poverty and past medical expenses led family members to run around everywhere to ask for assistance.
Tzu Chi subsidized health insurance expenses and helped pay off the outstanding medical expenses. It also assists with transportation to the hospital, chemotherapy, and living expenses.
If someone asked if it helped, I really feel that this has helped because it is really badly needed. It is very helpful for all the family members.
In the dark corners of the world, there's always a glimmer of light. Timely assistance has helped this man receive the treatment he needs to see hope again.
Tzu Chi volunteers from Malacca chapter, Malaysia, has been caring for 76-year-old Grandma Fan Yulin for 9 years. Suffering from diabetes, she has serious foot injuries and had to undergo amputation. Although during the pandemic, volunteers still went to the hospital to take care of the grandma and give her support.
I fell down. I don't know what happened.
Recalling the moment of falling, Grandma Yulin was hopeless.
The day I drove her to the emergency unit, she was immediately admitted to the hospital.
She called me. We were also afraid that her legs could not wait anymore. We saw the orthopedic doctor take x-ray for her. It affected her legs, so we asked her to stay in the hospital.
As Grandma Yulin suffers from diabetes, her legs hurt seriously, making her unable to take care of herself. In January this year, volunteers arranged for her to stay in a nursing home so that she could receive proper care. However, her leg deteriorated and she had to undergo amputation. Although the pandemic in Malaysia was severe, volunteers still went in and out of the hospital to take care of the grandma and give her spiritual support.
After the operation, the doctor said the wound did not heal well and there was a problem with it, so he saw off a little bit more.
No one expects it would turn out to be like this. Even so, she has to face it. It's not yet the end of life. We tried to help her as much as we can. We just hope that she won't suffer like this anymore.
In fact, Tzu Chi and Grandma Yulin got to know each other in 2012. At that time, she suffered a stroke. Volunteers took her to receive acupuncture every week. Later, volunteers mobilized to help her move. And on every Lunar New Year, she would go to Tzu Chi to join a reunion banquet.
I'm so happy Tzu Chi volunteers helped me move. I'm so happy to be here.
At least she has a better environment to live happily.
Volunteers' companionship and care for 9 years has never stopped and will continue to give Grandma the warmest support when needed.
In Tainan, the world baker champion Wang Pongjie set up a baking class online to teach students of an elementary school to make bread to cheer on the frontline medical workers. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you and see you next time.